It's just that it's a bit slow. There's a slight delay. Okay, it hadn't actually started recording. Now it has started recording. So welcome to our first class. So today we'll just be no, we won't be going through many things, right? I won't waste too much of your time. I want you guys to, because I see a lot of students are struggling, and if you do the wrong thing and you submit, that's a 0 because they can't run your code. So to start, there's two ways to, or three, right? There's three ways to run or submit your practical. The first approach that I would advise you to use is VPL, right? That I cannot demonstrate because I don't have login details. I'm sure they taught you in class VPL. I'm going to show you the code blocks and the batch file approach. So you can go to your favorite browser, right? I'm using Chrome. Open your favorite browser and then just search code blocks, download, right? You can say for Windows 10 or say for Linux, it doesn't matter. Just say download code blocks download or download code blocks. And then you can look for a link that is www.codeblocks.org. And then click there. And then you're gonna land on this page. You might not necessarily, okay, you should land on this page. Let me see. Yeah, okay, let's say you landed on this page, right? Either way, the process is the same. Then you're gonna look on the left panel, right? On your left hand side, and then click on downloads because we want to download something, which is code blocks. And there's different types of downloads, right? As you can see, there's three. There's download the source code, retrieve source code. Source code is the actual code. That's what it means. It's the C++. You do not want the C++. What are you going to do with it? It's pointless. You want the app, the actual Windows app or desktop application, which is found here in the first link. So you need to choose download the binary release. Click there, and then it's going to open this page. Then it's going to show you three operating systems. If you're using a Mac, right, a MacBook, you have Mac OS installed. That's the operating system that's running on the MacBook. It's not gonna work. It's not gonna run. It's not gonna work. Don't even bother. Code blocks, it doesn't run on MacBook because the Code Blocks company, it's based on a non-profit. It's a non-profit organization, right? So it depends on funding, on receiving donations and things like that. So they haven't been receiving such donations, so they cannot maintain or keep code blocks up to date. So that's why if you try downloading the macOS version of code blocks, it's not going to work. So it's either use VPL on your MacBook or you use the batch file. But then batch file is not going to work because it's a different operating system. The operating system that's there in the computer labs, it's Windows. So if you create a batch file on a macOS, it only runs on other MacBooks. I want you to take note of that. It only runs on other MacBooks. So the only way you can write code in using a Mac is via VPL. So if you're lucky enough to have either Linux or Windows, then you choose that one based on your operating system, or you can just scroll down. But then you can just click here on which operating system you want to download for. So the operating system that I want to download for is Windows because I am using a Windows operating system, as you can see. So I'm going to click Windows, and then it's going to take me to a list of files that I can download in order to install code blocks. If you're installing on a different operating system, it's slightly different, but it's almost similar. As you can see, it's almost similar. It's just that it's different operating system. This is Debian, this is CentOS, this is Ubuntu. Yeah, there's an operating system called Ubuntu. If you didn't know, it's a Linux distro for all the tech geeks out there. So which version are you going to download? I would advise you download the executable. By executable, it means that it ends in a .exe. That's the main file we're trying to download. But which file is the question. So as you can see, there's a lot of files. There's a long list. You don't know what's going on here. It's just a lot. So the two files that you can download, right? There's two options. You can either download this one over here that I've highlighted, or you download this down there, which is second from last. What's the difference? This at the bottom, second from last, it's for a 32-bit operating system, right? And then this one over here is for a 64-bit operating system. What does that mean? You can check in your laptop by opening the search bar, and then you just type about your PC and then press enter. It should open settings. And then when you get to settings, let me zoom in a bit. So when you get to settings, you will see, yeah, you go to system type, and then you see mine is 64-bit operating system, right? 64-bit. Yours might say 32. Just look at that location right there, or that information right there under system type. Mine says 64. So I'm going to download the main one, this one over here. If yours says 32, you're going to download this one second from last. Make sure it has Ming W in it. You see that there's this one over here. It's just set up. Then there's also this one over here for 32-bit. It's just set up, but there's no Ming W. So what is this Ming W? It's actually pronounced as Minj W. So what is this Minj W? It's the compiler. It means that the code blocks comes with the compiler to make your work easier. If you download this first one over here, you'd have to download the compiler on your own, which is a lot of work. I once demonstrated that in one of the videos. It's a lot of work. So it's advisable that you download this one over here. The reason why I went to the codeblocks website is because if you go to the website that they gave you guys for downloading your material, if you go to eve.uj.ac.za/resources/csc. So if you look at the website where you can download the files, right? Or the tools for the module, you see that it's written code blocks means w.exe, meaning it's only for Windows. If you download this one, it's only for Windows. So if you are using Windows operating system, you can also go to this website over here. You say eve.uj.ac.za/resources/csc/. Then just click on download the, and then it downloads. That's the easiest approach if you are using Windows. If you're not, for example, let's say you're using Linux, that's when you have to go to the official codeblocks website. So I'm going to show you how to download it on codeblocks. So you can choose either ForceHub or sourceforge.net. You choose either. Either one is fine. So I'm just going to choose SourceForge. And then there's my codeblocks IDE. It's for C, and the Fortran. Those are the different programming languages. And then your IDE is going to start downloading. So that's pretty much all you have to do to download the IDE. If you're downloading a different operating system, if you're using Linux, I assume you have a very deep understanding of your operating system. So yeah, I assume you have a deep understanding of your operating system. The i386 is 32-bit. It means 32-bit on Linux. The AMD 64, it means 64-bit. So that's how you can distinguish between the two. And then make sure you don't choose old stable. It means that it's an older version. You should just choose this one over here, the stable one. But then it depends on what operating system you're using. Look at this logo. This is for Debian. If you have the Debian operating system. If you have Ubuntu, you click here on PPA. and then it's going to redirect you to the instructions that you must follow. Okay, this is just this for people with Linux. I know there's like those few guys in class, like maybe maximum 10, who have this type of operating system. Then you're gonna go to personal package archives. You don't want daily builds. Daily builds, it means that it might crash tomorrow. If you download it today, it might crash tomorrow because they're maintaining it every day. You want the release, meaning that it has been released to the public. Then you just open your terminal, right? And then type these commands one by one. And then done. It's going to install code blocks. So that's pretty much how you download it on a Linux operating system. So now I'm gonna double click my executable file. If you can't see it here, and then make sure you choose yes. It's gonna show a pop-up and make sure you choose yes. If you can't see it, you're gonna go to your file explorer, which is here down on the bottom left corner. This one over here, the one that's yellow. Click there and then go to your downloads folder. You should see downloads, your executable file, right? Your code blocks. Then you just double click it. Then after double clicking it, it's gonna launch like this. Then you click next. Then you click I agree. If you have time, you can read it, but it's not really necessary. So if you check this, you see Minch W, the one that I was talking about is the compiler. So you don't have to do any extra steps if you install with Minch W, meaning it comes with the compiler. All you have to just click next. Don't change anything. Just choose the defaults and then click install. And then that's pretty much how you install code blocks. And then you're done. I would advise you choose this approach if you're on Windows operating system. If you're on a MacBook, use VPL. And then if you're on Linux, just use code blocks because code blocks is also there on Linux. So those are the different ways, right? You can for different operating systems. So let's wait for it to finish installing. And then I'm gonna make an example, right, on how you should create the project and how to save, how to zip, how to submit. Submitting is not an issue. How to set it up and zip it properly. So what I'm going to do is let me look for a practical. Did they talk about the instru? Okay, they didn't mention, right? I wanted the one where it shows how to name the practical. So let me just do this. Let me go to documents. Hopefully I can find it. Okay, there it is. ComSci one Prex. Let's choose any. Let me choose practical 2 and then close. They still didn't write. Why would they do that? I want the one where it's written how to name. Okay. So there's the one that's written on how to name the project, right? So if you look at this practical, it tells you that when you submit it, it should look something like this with the .zip, meaning it's zipped, right? It's in a zipped file. And then do you want to run code blocks? I'll just click yes and then click next, click finish to finish installing. Then code blocks is gonna open, and then I'm gonna close it. So when you're creating a new project, right? Um, cannot find in your can you okay, that's fine. Okay, let me quickly undo something, right? I had previous settings here, so I want to delete something. Yeah, I want to delete this. Okay. I downloaded the compiler separately, so I think that it's showing me all those errors because I downloaded the compiler separately. Well, yeah, I forgot. I already had code. Oh, yeah, I already had codeblocks installed. So for me, I forgot where to find those files. There's temporary files that you must delete in order for it to be brand new. I forgot where to find them. So when you guys open it up, right, it's gonna show you options like choosing the compiler. It's gonna have a default. Just go with the default, which is the GNU GCC compiler, which is GNU is GNU, G space GCC space compiler. You choose that one. So let me write it down. So you choose the one that's written GNU GCC compiler. When you first open codeblocks, you choose that one, the one that is this exact same name. That's the compiler that we use. And then once you're inside, let me put this somewhere there. Once you're inside your code blocks, let's wait for that. You go to settings, right? Before you create the project, go to settings and then click on compiler, right? It is you see the thing about this IDE, right? You really need to be very careful because sometimes when you what is this? When you do your project, your practicals, even though you installed the one that is MinchW, it might not run your code because of the IDE, not because you didn't do the right things. That's why I'm taking my precious time to explain it step by step, because one mistake, you're gonna see errors one way, and it's gonna become demotivating when you're expecting to at least have some progress. But then in let's say you follow Dr. Stung's tutorial, and then you get errors, and then you wonder why, because you didn't set up the code blocks properly. So you're gonna open settings like I did, and then like I said, you choose the GNU GCC compiler. By default, it's gonna choose that. But then just make sure you click that if it's not chosen when you open code blocks for the first time. Then we're going to choose the C++ version to use. There's versions, right? There's different compiler versions. So whatever number it ends in, it means that's the year it was released. So if it ends in a 11, it was released in 2011. It ends in a 14, 2014. Ends in 17, it was released in 2017. Ends at 20, it was released in 2020 during COVID. So what I'm going to do is, it's up to you which compiler, right? To be honest, it's up to you. But it's advisable to choose at least C++ 14, right? But then to make it simpler, to make it simpler for everyone, you're just going to choose the what is this? The the 2017 one. Because 2014 is still good, but then let's just choose 2017 just to be safe. Because 2017, you shouldn't have things that are very new, but it also won't have things that are too old. So it's like in between. So we're gonna choose that one. So make sure you choose the one that is ISO. There's two of them. There's one that's written GNU G C++ for standard ISO. Choose this one that is ISO C++. And at the end, there is minus std is equals to C++ 17. That's the one that you choose. You're gonna select it like this to click it. So let me minimize. So there it is, I've selected it. So now if once I've selected this, whenever I write things like for loops and while loops and things like that, it's gonna pick it up. So failure to do this, you get errors. It's a very important step. So click OK, and then everything is set. I don't know why it keeps on showing that warning. So once you've clicked that, once you've chosen that the compiler, you are good to go. And to create a new project, to make it simpler for you guys, right? You go to your practical, your PDF. Then you go to where is how you're supposed to name it. You select everything up until before the dot. The .zip is added when you zip the file to submit. So you don't select everything, or else they might not they might be unable to unzip it, the tutors when they're supposed to mark you, which can lead to you getting a 0. So yeah, you need to be very careful. So copy everything up until before the dot, and then I'm just gonna right click and say copy. As you can see, I selected everything up until just before the dot. And then I go back to my code blocks, I create a new project. And then I select console. We are doing what we call a console application. Console, it means the console or the terminal. So the terminal is this thing. If you open your search bar and then you say terminal, it's gonna open this terminal, this black screen or this black thingy. That's what we call the terminal or a console. So we're making apps that run on this console. In second year, when you do ComSci 2, you'll be doing apps that have buttons. So you see, it's a step-by-step thingy. So you need to start small and then you grow as you go on. So this console application and click go. And then the language, you can choose C. Remember if you check your learner's guide, it says C++. Make sure you choose C++. Click next. And then there's the important part. Okay, all the parts are important, but this also is very, very important. You right click. Remember we copied previously and then paste. Where there's information that you're supposed to put, you replace with your actual information. So the year is supposed to be 2025. And then okay, you guys might not see. And then the subject, so let me do this. The subject is, you need to put the module code, which is CSC 01A1. And then your student number. I'm just gonna put twos. Your initials, XYZ. Your surname, something. I'll just call it something. And then done. So you've named your practical the way they want you to name it when you submit it. Then now when it comes to number 2, there's the folder to create the project in. You need to make your work simpler, right, guys? Make sure you make your things simple. Don't make your life hard. Go to your file explorer, choose anywhere. I'm gonna choose documents, and then you create a new folder called codeblocks projects. And then make sure you know where that folder is. Then you go to your codeblocks, you click here, there's 3 dots here, to select where to save this project. Mine has already been selected. I know I have to go to documents, and then I scroll down, I look for the codeblocks project, I click it. You don't go inside of it, you just select it. And then you click select folder. So now this project will be saved inside of that folder. And then the rest, you just leave it as it is. And then you click next, and then you leave everything as it is. Don't change anything. And then click finish. And then done, you are finished. And then if you cannot see, right, let me do this. If you cannot see, there's this thing here to scroll. You see, you can scroll here. That's when you cannot see. You see that I cannot see everything here. So I have to go down here, and then I have to scroll to the left so that I can be able to see. You see, now I see everything. And then let me minimize. And then I can also go over here until it shows me this thing that looks like a dumbbell. And then I just click and then I move, right, to make space. I can do that. Or I can put it back the way it was so that I have enough space to code. And then where's your source code? You have to double click on sources, double click on main.cpp, and then there's your code, hello world. So I'm gonna have my project be hello Vortex Academy students, right? Just simple, something simple, and then to run, right? There's 2 options. There's build. Build, it means just translate it to the language that the computer can speak. Remember, the computer is like the person who only speaks their home language. So you have to always translate for that person because they are stubborn. They only want to speak their home language. It's like, for example, when you go to the taxi rank and you want to ask for a taxi, you must try that. Go there, speak in English, and you see how you're gonna be ignored. So there's the computer is also like that. It's stubborn. It only speaks its home language, which is what they call machine code or binary. Sometimes they call it binary, meaning binary by. Remember, by means two. Two. What are those 2 things? 0 and a 1. So it speaks in terms of zeros and ones. And then run, it means that after it has been translated, run that translated version, right? So every time you make a change, you need to do these two steps. Every time you change your code, you need to translate it back again because it stores that old translated version. We need to always be up to date. And then this part means to run the current translated version. So if it's not up to date, it means it can run the old version. So to show you that I'm not lying, let me run it, right? So let me put this somewhere here. So let me run it. So let me build, right? And then run. Okay, let's wait for it a bit. Code blocks tends to have those things. Tends tends to take its time. Why isn't it running now? Yeah, it's a code blocks thing. Let me see. Build. Let me see it down here. Build compiler to chain compiler. Try to run the executable. This is but failed. Oh, I don't know why it's doing. I don't know. I honestly don't know why it's doing that. Um. Oh yeah. You see this thing of mixing compilers. Let me check this. On your side, you shouldn't have any errors, right? It should be fine. Provided that this is your first time installing code blocks, even if it's not your first time, as long as you didn't do what I did, I know a lot, so I tend to install other things. So let me just double check here. If I didn't leave something else, Node.js, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So I don't see it here, so it is fine. So I have to go to settings and then compiler, and then global compiler settings. Um, come on, global compiler settings, and then let me quickly fix this thing, and then GNU GCC tool chain executables. Oh, so I need to go here to tool chain executables. Yeah, you see, it's picking up an old file. So let me do this in and then okay. Yeah, then click OK. For you, it's gonna be default the way it's gonna be on default the way it was, the way you found it. Me, I experiment and do many things. So yeah, that's why. So once you've built it, right? Once you built it, it's going to show you. It shows in blue if everything went well. You do one wrong thing. Let's say you left the semicolon there, and then you build. Remember, building is only translating. So it failed to translate because you didn't follow the syntax rules, which means your grammar. In English, we call that grammar. So that means it didn't follow the rules. A computer is not as lenient as people. For example, when we talk on WhatsApp or social media, we don't put full stop, right? We don't put the right punctuation marks at the right places. And that can be a problem with the computer because the computer is not as lenient as people. So we see that it did translate. It had no issues in translation. So since it had no issues in translation, then what should happen now? We should run it to see what's the output, and then there's the output. And then let me show you what I meant about you not building every time you make a change. So let me say this is now just hello world, right? And then I just click run. I skip build. I skip the whole translation part, and then I just click run, and then you see the output. It's still just outputting old stuff. So that's why I always advise you to use this one over here, which is build and run. Always use this option. Don't use these two buttons, leave them. I think that's why they put these two together, because you'll forget to build and then just run, and then you think your code is wrong. So let me click build and run, and then you see there's my change. And then I put it back the way it was, I build and run again, and then you see it updates. So that's why it's important to always build and run, do both. So I'm gonna put this thing back, and then I'm gonna go to my file explorer, right? Let's say you're done with the practical. This is you're done with the practical. You now go back to where the project is saved. That's why we chose a location, and that's why we also created a specific folder for our code blocks projects. Or you can call them ComSci 1A practicals, whatever name you want to use for your folder. I've called mine code blocks projects, and then to stretch, right? You can go here at the top until it shows this thing that sort of looks like a cross. Once it shows that thing that sort of looks like a cross, you click it and then you drag so that you can see, just in case your folder names are too long. So there's the folder that you guys, let's say this is your practical, that's the one you're supposed to submit. Now, what's the process or the procedure to submit? You click it and then right click, and then you'd have to zip it. So you'd have to, if you're using Windows 11, you'd have to say compress to zip file. I'm gonna repeat. I'm gonna repeat this thing is it's very important not to do spiritual things. If you choose 7Z or if you choose tar, they won't be able to unzip, meaning that technically you didn't submit anything, which is a zero. So be very careful. You can't just be okay, you can't just be doing things that and are going to put you at risk of getting a zero. To zip, you're going to right click, make sure it's selected, right? You see how it is right now. It's not selected, even though you can see this rectangle sort of thing, those lines. It's not selected. I know for those geniuses out there, it sounds like I'm explaining something that's very simple, but not all of us are privileged. So yeah, we need to accommodate everyone. So to select it, you click it once. You double click, you're opening the folder. You don't want that. So you want to go back and then click it once, and then you see when it's selected, this is how you see. When you move your mouse away, you see it's still selected. That means it is indeed selected. Now I can right click. Failure to follow those instructions. Let's say I didn't select it and yeah, let's say it's not selected, right? And then I go over it and then I right click. You see that it shows me totally different options. So that's why it's important to select it first, click once to select it, then right click. Then if you're using Windows 11, you compress to zip. If you choose this bottom two options, zero. They won't be able to unzip it, your tutors. So that's a zero. You choose zip file. If you're on Windows 11, Windows 10 or 8, I don't know who's using Windows 8, but if you're Windows 10, everyone should have Windows 10. If you're using Windows 10, Windows 10 and above, if you have Windows 10, you'd have to go to send to. There should be a send to option, and then you click compressed zipped folder to zip it. So I'm gonna click that, and then you see it zips it. As you can see, if I zoom in, it shows me the .zip. It added it on its own. So that's why I said do not select everything and say and save your folder as .zip, because when you zip it, it's gonna be .zip, which is a problem. So let me show you that it does. Some people they can do that, so that can create problems. So I'm gonna create a new empty folder, just an empty folder, right? I'm gonna call it empty. Oh, let me not. I want to demonstrate the zip. So let me say call it empty.zip. That's how I'm gonna name my folder, empty.zip. And then now let me zip it. Compress to zip file. So now let me zoom in. You see the problem? It's empty.zip.zip. What if they can't unzip it or open it? You see that you're gonna have issues. It will give you a zero. So name your folders properly. I know it sounds like a simple thing, but even me, there was a point where I didn't submit the right way. I think my folder. I think that was informatics 1A 1B. 1A, it was 1A. The way I submitted my practical, there was a lot of folders. I think there's like 4 folders or 5 within that one folder until they eventually. It, lucky enough that there was a genius tutor. They couldn't unzip it. So that's why I say it's important for you guys to do the right thing. I almost got a 0 because I didn't name the folder properly and it didn't zip properly. Lucky enough that tutor had his own techniques on unzipping it. And then he eventually found it. There's like 6 folders within somewhere there, imagine 6 folders. The seventh one being the main folder. But before you zip, remember the instructions before you zip. So let me go to this. Before you zip, they tell you that source should have this. Okay, this was last year. Your practicals, it says the SRC folder should have your source code main.cpp. If you are creating a code blocks project, you, it's not going to generate the SRC folder. You have to create the SRC folder yourself. Even if you're using VPL, even if you're using batch files, you have to create the SRC folder yourself. Then okay, let me close code blocks so that we see what happens. I want to demonstrate the error or the issues with students not submitting the right way. Let's say I follow the instruction. I'm like, oh, Dr. Stung said I should only put main.cpp inside SRC folder. Yeah, done. Most I can submit and run. And then you submit, right? You zip, and then you're like, I'm done. I'm gonna get 100. Then your tutor unzips, and then to run your project, right? Your tutor needs to look for a file that ends in a .cbp, which stands for code blocks project. He's gonna double click it to open code blocks. Remember, you didn't submit with the batch file, so he has to run it with code blocks. And then boom, there's code blocks. It opens, and then he double clicks on sources, and then you see that there's this broken thing. That means the file is broken. It's either missing or something. So code block couldn't fix that. So if you try to double click it, you see you get this error, which is a 0. There's no abo we're gonna get. You see that they can't see anything. They can't even see your code because you failed to submit the right way. So I'm gonna go back to my folder. Make sure you select everything that's not in a folder. Or that's not a folder. Everything that ends, um, anything that's not inside a folder, select all of it. Remember previous it was this, right? The main.cpp was here, and the source folder was not there. And then I created the SRC folder. You select everything, all these 4 files, everything. Your practical is gonna become bigger and bigger. Maybe you'd have files up until here, somewhere here. So you select all of them as long as it's not a folder. Select all of them, and then right click and click cut, and then go inside source folder and then paste. That's how you submit properly. So that when your tutor tries to run the project, they're going to double click here and say, oh, let me run it. Stop. And then you see it opened, right? Okay, let me do this. Now I have the same project open twice. Let me close code blocks. So end task, and then go back to my folder and then double click to run to open it inside code blocks. And then you see the difference. Now they can see your code, and now they can also run. They can build and run. There's your code. So it's very important to structure your folder and submit the right way. That's why I took my time to explain this thing. And then you're also going to have your docs folder for your design, right? So docs folder, whereby you're going to have I'm just going to create a dummy file. You don't have to actually remember there's no actual design yet. So instead of .txt, I'm going to remove the .txt and put .pdf to make it a PDF, and then done, just an empty PDF. That's it. And then this is how you should submit everything. Then once you're done creating those folders, then you can right click and then compress to zip file. Or if you're on Windows 10, you send it to compressed zipped folder. Either or both techniques lead to you getting the zip file. So that's how you're going to do it. If you're using a batch file, it's somewhat of a different case. But then I'm not sure with your tutors. I'm not sure how Dr. Stung wants you guys to do it. But then I'm sure he advised you to use VPL or code blocks. Batch files is a problem. With batch files, yeah, you need to know what you're doing. And as a beginner in coding, you don't want to be stuck on just trying to run the program. You want to be stuck on actually coming up with the formula, not how to run the program. You are struggling to run the program and you're a beginner. That's not gonna be nice. So that's I needed to explain that. Then when you submit, don't try to submit this folder. It won't upload. It can't. It's impossible. So when you submit, you would have to choose the zip file. You have to find where it is. Can you mute? Okay. I don't know why it's doing that. So there's the zip file. You click it and you submit, and then you're done. That's all you have to do. And then, so you've solved your practical, you're done. You can now focus on other modules. So that's the whole process of downloading and setting up code blocks, downloading and doing everything. Then there's another error. I forgot to demonstrate. There's another error that students were getting. It's a very small error if you're not familiar with code blocks. So students would be, I want you to, let me do this. Let me stretch it out like this so that it's visible. So you see here, there's projects to see your projects. You click on projects to see your project. You click on files, it shows your file system, which is your C drive. F symbols, don't know what that is. Resources, don't know what that is. So most students, their code will be stuck on resources, right? And then they'll be like, hey, I can't see. Let's say it's like this. You can't see. And then you're like, you try double clicking, nothing's happening. You're like, hey, I don't see what's going on. You need to click on projects. That's how you navigate. This panel is very important because sometimes it might not show. And so another mistake students make is trying to, let me show you what students make. Hey, students make a lot of mistakes. So let's say new file. No, let me not a new file. Let me say file and then to close the project, right? There's two ways to close the project. You can click X there at the top right corner, or you can go to file and then you scroll down, you click close project. And then when you close the project, it's gonna close it like this. What most students do, right? I don't know how they did it, but they don't click this new project, but it's not gonna work. Your code is not gonna run if you don't actually make it as a new code blocks project. It won't run. These parts will still be gray. They won't work. So always click here before doing your practical, not to open a main.cpp file, something like that. So let me see, open, yeah. So let me click open and then click this. Yeah. So students, they do this and they start coding, then they're like, my code, it's not, oh, it does run, but then for me, it runs because I know how to set up my stuff properly. For most of them, it wasn't working because you can't be importing. And when you're importing it as like this, right, it's just main.cpp. It's not a whole code blocks project. That's why we always start here and we say create a new project. Or if you have an already existing code blocks project, you can click open an existing code blocks project and then choose this file that is the code blocks icon, that one. And then you click open and then it should open. So there's two ways to do that. Or you can go to the folder itself and then double click the .cbp file and it's going to open code blocks. So that's the other way of doing it. So that's the whole procedure on how to work with do your project how to set it up, how to create, and how to run. And make sure before we can end the session now. I just wanted to show you this flow and everything because a lot of students are having these issues because it's their first time being exposed to such things. So it's mandatory to make sure that we are all on the same page. So make sure you click on settings and then go to compiler when you start. Then make sure it shows GNU GCC compiler and make sure you choose the one that is minus std is equals to C++ 17. Make sure you select it so that whatever C++ code you write, it knows this is C++ code. That's why that's important. If you don't, even if you write the correct code, it won't run. So you think your code is not right and not submit the practical, but your code is actually right and end up getting a 0 because you didn't click this option over here. So there's a lot of things, a lot of details that are involved here that you need to pay close attention to in order to pass your practicals properly. And then I'm gonna click OK and then done. Everything is set up. Now every time I create a new codeblocks project, I won't have any issues going to be able to run it properly. And then the batch file technique, I did demonstrate it on the video. That's the other technique, the one in the other video. This is the other technique. But then this technique, right, the code blocks, I don't know, it's a problem now with code blocks, right? Because in your practicals, right, you see the problem here. I don't know if you see the problem. Um, if you see here, I have my main.exe inside the same folder as as the main.cpp, which is a problem. So yeah, that's why the batch file technique was being used in those previous practical. I'm still not sure if it's being used now, but then I think the batch file technique is the best because your practicals they have certain requirements. They're saying that .exe file should be in a separate folder, in its own folder. So in order to achieve that, you need a batch file. So let me look at your guys' practical. Let me see something here. Yeah. So you see for this practical over here, this one, practical 3, there's no requirements. It doesn't say the main.cp.exe should be in this folder. So I think for now, no more batch files. Just do a codeblocks project. Make sure you create the src folder and you copy everything that's not a folder and put it within that src folder before zipping it, or else it's not gonna run properly. So you need to put it within there. Oh no. Like I said, the practicals have changed now. I don't know why lecturers don't explain it to you guys thoroughly. Like I said, you see in this practical, there's no requirement that says you should have an src folder or a bin folder or a docs folder or a what folder. There's no requirement here. It's not stated. And there's no marks for it. There's no, you get marks if the main.exe is inside. There's no marks for it. So you just create a simple code blocks project and then just zip it. That's it. Don't do it the way I did it in putting it in src folder. That this was fine if you're doing the previous practical. Now this current practical doesn't require you to do all those extra stuff. So now it's a bit easier. You just open codeblocks, you create the project. Done. You start coding. And then you solve your practical. So with your practical, they want you to use something that we call switch statements, if statements, and the conditional operator. Okay, so there's no things like loops and whatnot. Yeah, so it's too easy. So with the practical, we'll start with the practical when, let me see, when's our session? In the next session, that's when I'll start with the practical. So the way I'm going to teach, right? I'm going to look at the practical and teach those things, right? Before using them. That's how I'm going to structure it because I notice students they get bored or they don't understand that if I make a video, it's applicable to the practical, you can use it to solve the practical, and then they don't watch it. So that's why it's better for me to actually say I'm doing the practical. Then they see the practical, and then I explain switch statements, I explain if statements, then I explain the conditional operator within that session. And the practical is open. I think that's when students they tend to actually attend and understand and try to and attempt to understand. Else they don't watch entirely, which is wrong because when I make those videos, I'm trying to separate the explanation part from the actual answers for the practical. And remember, since you guys, this practical is due for you guys, it's meant for you guys to solve. I will do a practical 3 from last year, 2024. It should be exactly the same, but then different problem. It doesn't really matter. It's not about the main point is not about the problem. It's about how you use these tools here. So if we look at last year's practical before I end the session, I need to go to documents and then ComSci 1 practicals. Do I have a practical 3? Okay, there it is. Practical 3. Nah. No, this is ComSci 1B. CSC 1A. Yeah, I don't see a practical 3. Let me see, scroll down. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have a practical 3. It's fine. I'll explain the concept and do something that I did similar in the other practical. But then I won't give out the actual answers, right? I'll make my own example. And remember in maths, the round brackets means exclusive. Square brackets means inclusive. It means it includes. Inclusive means it includes that value. Exclusive means it excludes that value. So you need to pay very close attention to those details. Then use, yeah, this is not a too bad practical. I just need to explain those things in the next session. They should be clear. Let me see. Oh, yeah, you're lucky. Practical 2 is actually this similar to practical 3. And you see they have the round brackets and the square brackets. Yeah. So we'll do practical 3 two's memo from last year. It asks the exact same questions. Switch case, if statements, and the conditional operator. So yeah, that's better instead of me solving it for you guys. That's wrong. So I'm gonna do this practical in the next session. So do you guys have any questions? Let me see. Konje, okay, let me do this. Let me stop recording and then I'm going to